exciting to see him. That how you are really tough, right? Just look at me. Yes. What do you want? You want to try to fight?
In a hidden corridor of Golden Harvest Studios, two legends met in silence, and what followed became one of legend in the world of martial arts cinema.
Before he just came from American for the visiting on the set. Then people introduce him, oh, this is a Bruce Lee, this is Sammo, blah, blah. He already is my idol.
The world of martial arts cinema is filled with iconic moments, but few are as captivating as the legendary hallway encounter between two titans of the genre, Bruce Lee and Sammo Hung. This brief but intense exchange, though undocumented on film, has transcended time, becoming one of the most discussed and mythologized moments in martial arts history. Picture this: a quiet, dimly lit hallway inside the Golden Harvest Studios in Hong Kong, 1971. It's late in the day, the crew has mostly drifted away, and the set is now almost empty. Yet in the stillness, two figures remain. Bruce Lee, already a global icon, renowned for his unparalleled speed and precision, and Sammo Hung, a rising star with a deep foundation in Chinese opera and martial arts. Hung had heard about Lee's speed and skill, legends that had already begun to spread like wildfire. This wasn't just any casual meeting. It was a test, a challenge, and a moment of mutual respect between two martial artists who were about to learn something about themselves and each other. When Sammo Hung stood before Bruce Lee, he wasn't just looking at a movie star. He was standing in front of a man who had redefined martial arts on screen and off. But was it going to be a challenge of strength, a test of speed, or something more philosophical? And then it happened. In an instant, Bruce Lee moved, his foot a blur of motion that stopped just inches from Hung's face. It wasn't a fight, at least not in the traditional sense. It was a demonstration, a subtle yet profound lesson that transcended mere combat. This brief encounter would later be remembered as one of the most legendary moments in martial arts history, not for its outcome, but for what it revealed about the philosophy of martial arts, the nature of speed, and the respect between two masters of their craft. In 1971, the bustling Golden Harvest Studios in Hong Kong was a hive of activity, where filmmakers, stunt performers, and actors move a rhythm dictated by scripts, schedules, and the relentless pursuit of cinematic perfection. But amid the clatter of cameras and the chatter of crew members, there exists a story that few ever witnessed firsthand, yet one that will reverberate through martial arts history for decades. It begins in a narrow, fluorescent-lit corridor, a place far removed from the bright lights and cameras that captured countless cinematic battles. Here, behind closed doors, two legends met, and the world briefly held its breath. Bruce Lee, at just over 30, was already a global icon. His reputation preceded him everywhere he went. The actor who had electrified audiences in The Green Hornet shattered conventions with Fist of Fury, and would soon redefine martial arts cinema with Way of the Dragon. His body was a living testament to years of disciplined training, mornings on heavy bag drills, afternoons refining sparring techniques and Jeet Kune Do philosophies, evenings dedicated to studying movement and timing. Every muscle was honed to precision. Every motion reflected his understanding of efficiency, speed, and adaptability. But beyond physical prowess, Lee possessed an intellect that matched his body, a mind that dissected the mechanics of motion, analyzed the philosophy of combat, and explored the psychology of human performance. Facing him that day was Sammo Hung, a young talent from the rigorous Peking Opera School. At 19, Hung had endured years of grueling physical training, mastering acrobatics, body control, balance, and a disciplined understanding of pain. His life had been shaped by early mornings of conditioning, evenings of choreography, and countless hours perfecting movements that combined strength and grace. But standing in that corridor, he was no longer a student or performer. He was an observer of a living legend. Hung had heard the whispers of Bruce Lee's unmatched speed, and now he was here to measure it for himself. Not out of ambition, but curiosity and respect. The corridor, narrow and dimly lit, became the arena. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting a sterile glow over polished floors. Crew members had left, cameras were turned off, and silence took over the space. The tension was palpable. Lee's eyes, sharp and focused, scanned Hung's stance. A faint smile formed on his lips, almost imperceptible, signaling not arrogance, but a subtle acknowledgement. He understood the seriousness of the moment. Hung, sleeves rolled up, muscles tensed, nodded in anticipation. This wasn't about showmanship or ego. It was about truth, about testing limits, about understanding what it meant to measure speed and control against a master. Do you want to see if I am really as fast as they say? Lee asked, calm but charged, his tone carrying both challenge and invitation. Hung simply nodded. In that instant, the hallway ceased to exist as a mere studio passageway. It became a stage, a proving ground where movement, philosophy, and human potential collided. Then, like lightning, Lee moved. His foot shot forward in a motion so quick it seemed almost supernatural, stopping inches from Hung's face. The kick did not land, not because it lacked power, but because it didn't need to. The demonstration itself conveyed a lesson. Silence followed, heavy and thick, as Hung processed what had just occurred. After a brief pause, he exhaled, a grin tugging at his lips, and admitted simply, very fast. Lee's only response was a quiet half-smile, a gesture of acknowledgement and subtle mentorship. What makes this encounter extraordinary isn't the technique alone. It's the philosophy embedded within it. Lee wasn't demonstrating speed for spectacle. Each movement was a lesson in presence, timing, and understanding. He was teaching through action, not words. The kick wasn't just a strike. It was a language, a way of communicating that transcended dialogue. It expressed the truth about martial arts. Mastery is not just physical, but mental, spiritual, and philosophical. And in that corridor, Hung glimpsed a truth that would shape his own career and understanding of combat. To the casual observer, it may have seemed like a simple sparring demonstration. Yet for those who were present, the intensity of the moment was overwhelming. Time appeared to slow, and every breath, every heartbeat felt magnified. The energy between the two men wasn't aggression. It was curiosity, respect, and the silent communication of masters. Both understood that this was a rare moment. A collision not of fists, but philosophies. A brief intersection of two paths in the vast timeline of martial art history. Within days, word of the hallway encounter spread quietly among Golden Harvest staff and the broader martial arts community. No cameras captured the moment, and no official accounts were ever written. Yet tales traveled quickly through whispers, painting Bruce Lee as a force that defied human perception. Even Sammo Hung, a rising star in his own right, recalled the event with humility, emphasizing that the demonstration wasn't a fight in the traditional sense, but a test, a fleeting glimpse into what mastery truly meant. The hallway challenge, brief and unrecorded, left an indelible mark. It highlighted not only Lee's physical abilities, but also his philosophy of martial arts. Speed combined with intelligence, discipline blended with freedom, and technical mastery paired with deep respect. And for Hung, that moment was transformative. He had witnessed a master's language in motion and absorbed lessons far beyond physical strikes. It was an encounter that would resonate throughout his career, shaping his approach to combat choreography, storytelling, and the future of martial arts cinema. Bruce Lee was not simply a fighter. He was a philosopher in motion, an innovator who approached martial arts as a language rather than a sport. To understand the hallway encounter with Sammo Hung, one must first grasp the depth of Lee's thinking, the precision of his body, and the radical ideas he brought to martial arts. By 1971, Lee was already more than a star. He was a phenomenon, challenging both the physical limits of the human body and the traditional norms of Chinese martial arts. Speed was not a gimmick for Lee. It was a measure of mastery. Every motion of his body, from a simple punch to a complex combination, was calculated to maximize efficiency. Lee's philosophy, Jeet Kune Do, translated as the way of the intercepting fist, emphasized intercepting an opponent's attack before it fully developed. The principle was deceptively simple. React before your opponent strikes. Move before they expect. Strike with precision and intent. In practical terms, this meant that speed was never just a matter of reflex. It was a culmination of mental focus, physical conditioning, and philosophical understanding. To move fast was to live in the moment, to be fully present, to embody the unity of mind, body, and intention. Lee's training regimen reflected this philosophy. He did not rely solely on traditional kata patterns. Instead, he integrated multiple disciplines, combining elements from Western boxing, fencing, judo, and kung fu. His mornings often began with hours of heavy bag work, conditioning muscles and tendons to react instantly. Afternoons were spent sparring and refining footwork, enhancing balance and timing. Even his diet and rest were components of training, ensuring the body could respond as quickly as the mind commanded. Each exercise was not just physical but intellectual, a way to push the body toward its absolute potential while simultaneously testing the limits of coordination, timing, and awareness. This fusion of mind and body became evident during the hallway encounter. To a casual observer, Lee's movements might have appeared as a blur, almost supernatural in their speed. But those who understood martial arts could see the layers of intention behind every strike, every feint, every pause. The kick that stopped inches from Sammo Hung's face wasn't random. It was a demonstration of control, precision, and timing, a perfect example of Jeet Kune Do in action. The philosophy was clear. Mastery is not about brute force, but about efficiency, awareness, and adaptability. In other words, a master can strike effectively while expending minimal energy, using only what is necessary to achieve the objective. Beyond physical technique, Lee's speed carried a psychological element. It challenged expectations, forcing opponents to reconsider their assumptions about reaction time and control. For Sammo Hung, witnessing that speed was not merely an exercise in awe. It was a moment of learning, an encounter that revealed the potential of human performance when combined with understanding. Lee's philosophy suggested that martial arts was not static. It was fluid, dynamic, and infinitely adaptable. The true challenge was not defeating an opponent, but adapting to the moment, responding to change, and moving with clarity and purpose. Lee's approach to martial arts also emphasized the integration of philosophy into combat. He often spoke about the importance of personal expression and the rejection of rigid traditionalism. To him, fighting was not just a physical act. It was a reflection of the mind, emotions, and spirit. Every movement carried meaning, and every strike was a statement. In the corridor, the demonstration was a dialogue, a conversation conducted without words. It was Lee saying, through action, this is the essence of martial arts. This is what it means to move, react, and live fully in the moment. His philosophy extended to humility and respect. The question, "Do you want some?" that he posed to Sammo Hung was not a taunt. It was an invitation to understanding. Lee never sought to dominate through intimidation. Instead, he wanted to communicate a lesson, to test limits, and to observe mastery in action. His speed, precision, and control were as much about teaching as they were about demonstrating skill. In that corridor, Lee was both teacher and practitioner, offering a rare glimpse of martial arts as living philosophy rather than mere combat sport. Even more revolutionary was Lee's rejection of tradition as limitation. At a time when many schools of martial arts adhered rigidly to patterns, forms, and hierarchical protocols, Lee championed freedom and innovation. He believed that true mastery meant discarding what is unnecessary, absorbing what works, and constantly evolving. In this sense, the hallway encounter was emblematic of his broader mission: to transcend conventional thinking, to test human potential, and to inspire a new generation of martial artists to approach combat as art, science, and philosophy simultaneously. Speed, therefore, was not an end in itself. It was a measure of understanding. It revealed who could think, react, and adapt faster. It exposed hesitation and rewarded clarity. In that brief encounter with Sammo Hung, Lee demonstrated all these principles in under a second. The strike stopped short contact, yet its impact was profound. It communicated mastery without aggression, philosophy without words, and the limitless potential of the human body guided by the mind. Ultimately, Bruce Lee's demonstration of speed and philosophy in that narrow hallway was a living manifesto. It wasn't about spectacle or proving superiority. It was about embodying a principle, illustrating the fusion of intellect, physical skill, and philosophy in a single, fleeting moment. To Sammo Hung, and to those who later heard the story, it was not a fight, but a lesson, a transformative experience that would inform their understanding of martial arts for the rest of their lives. To fully appreciate the hallway encounter, it is essential to understand Sammo Hung, not just as a rising martial arts star, but as a dedicated student of movement and discipline. By 1971, Hung was already on a trajectory that would later make him a cornerstone of Hong Kong action cinema. Unlike Bruce Lee, whose reputation had already crossed international borders, Hung was still largely known within the local martial arts and film communities. Yet his foundation in the rigorous Peking Opera School had instilled in him a level of discipline, agility, and theatricality few could match. The Peking Opera School was notoriously demanding. From an early age, Hung endured long hours of physical conditioning that tested strength, balance, flexibility, and stamina. Students learned acrobatics, complex choreographed sequences, and control of pain, skills that would later define Hong Kong's martial arts cinema. This training went beyond fighting. It was about cultivating a complete performer, someone who could express emotion, narrative, and intention through the body. By the time Hung stepped onto the set at Golden Harvest Studios, he had already spent years refining control over every muscle and movement, mastering balance, precision, and timing. He understood the subtle interplay of body mechanics that allowed martial artists to strike, evade, and recover seamlessly. Yet, despite his formidable skill, Hung approached the hallway encounter with Bruce Lee not as a challenge to dominate, but as a moment of curiosity and respect. He had heard of Lee's legendary speed, but reputation alone did not prepare him for the reality of meeting a man whose reflexes and timing seemed almost otherworldly. As he recalled decades later, the exchange was never intended to be a fight. It was a light demonstration, a chance to test the truth behind the myth. Still, the intensity in the air suggested something more profound than mere sparring. The moment Lee's foot shot forward, the air seemed to crack, a near tangible force that carried not just speed but intention. For Hung, witnessing Lee's precision and control was transformative. Every martial artist dreams of testing themselves against someone greater, but few ever experience an encounter that reshapes their understanding of possibility. In that brief flash, Hung observed more than technique. He glimpsed mastery distilled into motion. Lee's kicks and strikes, stopped mere inches from contact, were not exercises in dominance, but lessons in control, clarity, and philosophy. The demonstration challenged Hung to see martial arts not simply as performance or combat, but as a living dialogue between mind, body, and intent. Hung's reaction was equally significant. Rather than boasting or claiming defeat, he acknowledged Lee's skill with a simple, understated, very fast. In martial arts culture, this was no mere compliment. It was a statement of recognition and respect. To call a test even was to honor mastery, to acknowledge that the lesson had been communicated without words, and that the spirit of martial arts, discipline, humility, and adaptability, had been understood. It was a gesture of maturity and restraint, reflecting Hung's understanding that martial arts transcends competition. It is as much about learning and growth as it is about victory. The impact of that hallway encounter extended far beyond that single moment. Sammo Hung later carried its lessons into his career, shaping his approach to fight choreography, performance, and mentorship. Unlike Lee, whose life and career were tragically cut short, Hung went on to influence generations of martial artists and actors. He became a central figure in Hong Kong cinema, blending humor, acrobatics, and brutal yet precise combat sequences. Yet, even as his career flourished, the corridor encounter with Bruce Lee remained a touchstone, a reminder of what mastery looked like, how presence and speed could communicate more than words or force ever could. For Hung, the hallway was also a lesson in humility. He had trained for years, endured physical and mental challenges, and believed in his own abilities. Yet, Lee's speed and control revealed dimensions of martial arts that Hung had yet to experience firsthand. It was a moment of awakening, illustrating that no matter how skilled one might be, there's always a higher level of understanding to aspire to. This mindset would guide Hung throughout his career, allowing him to innovate, mentor, and respect the craft in ways that kept Hong Kong action cinema evolving. Hung's reflections on the encounter reveal a man not impressed by spectacle, but by principle. He understood that mastery is measured not by defeating an opponent, but by demonstrating control, clarity, and insight. Bruce Lee, for Hung, was more than a martial artist. He was a visionary, someone who showed what martial arts could become when freed from convention. The hallway encounter was a silent transmission of knowledge, a fleeting moment that left a permanent imprint on the way Hung approached combat, choreography, and teaching. Even decades later, When recounting the story to young actors and martial artists, such as Jackie Chan, Hung emphasized the importance of respect, observation, and learning over ego and victory. He never exaggerated what happened, nor did he diminish it. In his eyes, the hallway encounter was not about who was stronger or faster. It was about recognizing mastery, internalizing a lesson, and carrying it forward. The phrase was even captures this perfectly, an acknowledgement of quality in spirit, if not in raw speed. This subtle understanding of respect and balance is perhaps one of the most profound lessons Hung absorbed that day. In sum, the hallway encounter was as much a formative experience for Sammo Hung as it was for martial arts history. It illustrated the meeting of two generations, Lee, at the height of his innovation, and Hung, a young artist eager to learn. It was a silent dialogue about speed, control, philosophy, and humility. Hung's career and contributions to cinema would carry the echoes of that brief encounter, proving that martial arts is not solely about physical domination, but about transmission, insight, and the pursuit of continuous growth. Few moments in martial arts history are as shrouded in mystery and legend as the brief hallway encounter between Bruce Lee and Sammo Hung at Golden Harvest Studios in 1971. Though it lasted only seconds and involved no cameras, no audience, and no official documentation, its impact reverberated through martial arts cinema, oral history, and imagination of generations of fans and practitioners. This fleeting meeting became a story told and retold, evolving into something far greater than the simple demonstration it began as, a story that blurred the line between fact and myth. The essence of the encounter lay not in combat, but in presence. Observers describe an almost palpable tension in the air as Lee shifted into stance, his eyes sharp, his body poised. Hung, for his part, was equally focused, anticipating motion, ready to respond. Then, in a blink, Lee's foot shot forward, an explosion of speed, controlled to perfection, stopping inches from Hung's face. That moment, witnessed by only a handful of crew members and stunt performers, became instantly legendary within the studio. It wasn't just the velocity or the precision that astonished those who saw it. It was the way Lee's motion seemed to communicate intention, philosophy, and mastery all at once. Word of the encounter spread rapidly, first by whispers among crew members and stunt performers, then across the Hong Kong film industry. No photographs or video footage existed, but the story grew, gaining texture and detail with each retelling. People spoke of the moment as if it had frozen time itself. The few who had been there recounted Lee's speed as almost supernatural, describing it as too fast to see, or like watching a lightning strike contained in a corridor. While Hung downplayed the incident as a casual demonstration, the retellings of others elevated it to mythic proportions. The story became a rite of passage, a cautionary tale, and a symbol of the limitless potential of human skill. This mythology reflects a key aspect of martial arts culture, the power of demonstration over decoration. Bruce Lee, unlike many contemporaries, did not rely on talk or boastfulness to assert mastery. Instead, he used motion, timing, and presence to communicate. In the hallway, he conveyed lessons about speed, control, and philosophy without uttering a word. To the casual observer, it may have seemed like a sparring match, but to those trained to read movement, it was a dialogue. Every step, pivot, and strike carried meaning, reflecting Lee's deep understanding of Jeet Kune Do, the philosophy of intercepting and adapting rather than adhering to rigid forms. The story's transition from reality to legend illustrates how martial arts narratives evolve. Without cameras to record the moment, imagination filled the gaps, and oral history transformed a private demonstration into a symbolic event. Enthusiasts debated endlessly. Did Lee truly overpower Hung? Or was it, as Hung claimed, even? Did the encounter represent a battle, a lesson, or a simple passing of knowledge? Each retelling added its own interpretation, emphasizing different aspects of speed, skill, or philosophy. In the absence of objective evidence, the story became a mirror reflecting the values and aspirations of those recounting it. Over time, this legend also shaped perceptions of Bruce Lee's genius. While his films had already introduced audiences worldwide to a new standard of martial arts cinema, the hallway story reinforced the idea that Lee was not merely an actor or choreographer, but a visionary. His ability to merge philosophy, speed, and human mechanics into a living demonstration exemplified the ideals of Jeet Kune Do. The story emphasized that martial arts were more than competition. They were about understanding control and the evolution of skill. Lee was not seeking to dominate. He was seeking to teach, even in silence. The hallway encounter between Bruce Lee and Sammo Hung may have lasted only a few seconds, but its impact echoes through martial arts and cinema even today. It reminds us that mastery is not just about speed or strength, but about respect, discipline, and the courage to push boundaries. Bruce Lee showed the world what dedication and innovation could achieve, while Sammo Hung carried that inspiration forward, shaping generations of martial artists and filmmakers. If you enjoyed this story and want more legendary martial arts moments, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Leave a comment below to tell us which moment or fighter inspires you the most. Remember, greatness is built one step, one kick, and one lesson at a time.